Welcome, everybody, to ExExecs. We are delighted to have your company in this podcast, and we hope you enjoy the conversation. We enjoy our conversations, Tarek, Robin, and I. We cross swords, we massage egos, we confirm each other's thoughts, we do all sorts of interesting things as we talk to each other. But a brief intro, just to remind you who we are. Tarek.
Yes, I keep on changing this with every episode.
It's your life, Tarek.
Constant evolution, right?
Absolutely.
So I started as a lizard, and then and here I am.
It's a reincarnation. I didn't think we'd get to reincarnation this early in the conversation, I have to say.
Yeah, you said from the sands of Egypt, so guess what? I started.
Come on, you're musical. So let me ask you a question. Which musical piece would you love to have written? That you think, I would love to have written that.
Probably something from Pink Floyd.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And actually, the question to ask me is, what's your favorite chord?
Come on, what's your favorite chord?
A B minor.
A B minor?
Yep.
Is there a joke in there somewhere?
No.
I missed it. No, okay. There's no, okay. All right, okay.
Over to Robin.
I don't even ask me what my favourite chord is. I don't even know what the chords are. So.
Yeah, okay, Robin. Just name a letter between A and G. You'll be all right. Somewhere, and just put the word major or diminished or something around it, and you'll sound great. Robin, we're walkers. We had a good day yesterday in a kind of symbolic sort of way.
Why? What happened yesterday?
You look black. The King opened the coastal path around the whole of the UK.
The Southwest Coastal Path is part of that, isn't it? And I did that.
It is.
I did that last year. Yeah, that took me about a month. Wonderful, one of the best walks I've ever done, actually.
Amazing. We hope to do it one day. It's one of our ambitions when we can get away from dogs
And how are you, John?
and kids and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, we're rocking and rolling. It's spring up in the Yorkshire Dales. The gardening chores are about to start. We decided what we're going to grow, and we're going to crack on with it. I might even buy myself a ride-on mower because the old back won't.
Don't
last
forget
forever.
to rotate, John.
So there.
It's all about rotation.
Yes. Yeah, we decided which one we're leaving fallow. Absolutely. Fellas, it's good to see you today. It's good to talk to you. We've had some interesting conversations in the past about presentations, about having hard conversations. That was quite an interesting deep dive. We might do some more of that, actually. And at the end of this, I'm going to ask Robin to tell us who is coming next time on our podcast. And I'm going to ask Tarek to summarize what we've talked about. Our intention in ExExecs is to speak to you on your professional career. We want you to enjoy it. We want you to enjoy success, growth, stimulation, and we want you to be rewarded for running things properly, teams, projects, possibly even organizations. We've all been to the very top of organizations ourselves, and we want to help you by sharing some of our experiences. So whatever part of the journey you're on, you are with us and we are with you. And you're able to send us questions, and people have sent us comments and questions already. Send us questions, send us comments. We want to welcome you to our community. We are on your side. Today's topic is the Art of Delegation. Oh boy, this is a big one because you can't do everything anymore. And this is an art, not a science. Notice we use the phrase art, not science, when we talk about delegation. So I'm going to bring in the most artistic person we have in the conversation, which has to be you, Tarek.
I thought you were going to say Robin.
I'm offended.
Well, you love your Pink Floyd, you see. Tell us a story about when delegation went right for you.
Okay, here's a little story. Actually, I want to go, if you remind me, I want to go back to why you need to delegate or why you should delegate, etc. We'll come back to that in a second. But let me tell you first the story. I had responsibility and the honor to basically lead a team across a region. I'm not going to specify the region just to protect the innocent, if you will. So I had a chief of staff, and that chief of staff, I was new to the region. She was new to me. She was already in the region for quite a bit of time, but I think the previous roles that she had were not, she was basically given tasks. She was given task orientation. Do this, do this, do this, do this. So very early on, she and I sat down and we were talking about how do we want to communicate a particular issue. And we agreed how we would do it. And I said, well, why don't you craft up the communication that we want to send out? So she did. She came back a little bit later and she said, here it is. Do you want to read it? And I said, no. And he said, what do you mean no? I said, no, send it. Don't worry. I've got your back. Don't worry. It's my responsibility, but I'd like you to send it. And she did. And it was brilliant. And the transition in her confidence and self-belief that happened, of course, it saved me quite a bit of time. But at the same time, it said to her, I trust you, even though our relationship was new and the work relationship was quite new. And to me, that was quite important. So, because it was in a part of the world where that didn't normally happen. People, chief of staff was told what to do, etc. No, she felt empowered. And that was just an example, but I knew that it was going to happen when I did it.
You just used the big T word there, trust.
Yeah.
So we're probably going to come back to quite a lot.
Can we come back to that? Because
do.
High performance.
You have a burden on your heart here, Tarek.
Yeah, yeah.
Why?
Yeah, because also the other theme in this, Tarek, is that there is. I mean, when I actually Googled delegation. See, I'm getting better at this, guys. I prepare now. I never used to prepare.
Well done.
But actually,
welcome to the 21st century.
And there are so many different types of delegation, aren't there?
Yes.
Of course, there's sometimes when you might delegate, but you'll still guide that person through the process because it's very much a learning opportunity. There are other times when you're, as you said, Tarek, you're absolutely confident of entrusting something to someone without checking on them. So there are different sort of types of delegation, different little places down the spectrum.
Let's go back to why. Why do you need to delegate? So in one of the workshops that we do at the university where I co-lecture, we have a particular session on leadership, right? And the leadership challenges. So I'll just list a few of them just to give you an idea that no one single person can ever do that. You don't have to be even at the top of the organization, but So things like there's not enough time. Time is a challenge. Data and decisions. There's not ever enough data, and sometimes it's too much data. You have to prioritize for the now, the short term, the medium term, and the long term. You have to see whether your structure is suitable, the organizational structure that you have is suitable for now and for the future and how you evolve it. The people, are they the right ones in the right places? Communication, internally and externally. How often, which channels? If you're dealing with clients, feedback from clients and the change in the client space. Geopolitical, like what's happening now. Market, supply chain, investors, board, regulations, revenue models, mindsets, connecting, letting go, right? So there's that multitude of things as a leader that you're tasked or should be expected to handle. There's no way one person can do all of that. So you have to build trust. That takes me back to the trust. And I'll just mention something that is quite important. So the high performance teams anywhere, in any organization, outperform other teams with a particular capability, if you will, that's in there, or not capability, a component, and it's trust. So if there's trust in the team, between the leader and the team and between the team members, according to Dr. Paul Zak in Neuroscience of Trust, according to the Harvard Business Review, 74% less stress, 40% less burnout, 106% more energy at work, 76% more engagement, 50% higher productivity. Same team, but you just built the trust, right? 50% higher productivity and 13% fewer sick days. So clearly you have to create trust amongst the team. And part of it is delegation because you empower them and they feel heard, listened, seen, etc., etc. So sorry to ramble on, but the statistics and the data support it.
Yeah, I think your fundamental principle there is that when you climb the ladder, and I'm putting myself in the position of a person they've got their career going, but they want to go to a higher level and they want to potentially lead something somewhere. As you climb that ladder, the one thought must occur to you: you are not capable of doing it all. It's an impossible job to do. And if you try to do it all and do it all well, you are going to fail. And therefore, you must delegate, allocate responsibilities to people you trust to take on responsibilities. And that's one of the things that many insecure leaders do, is they try and keep as much to themselves as possible. And it sends out that signal, Tarek, that you're emphasizing. which is, I don't trust you because I'm doing this myself because I don't trust you to do it. And that automatically diminishes morale.
Yeah, and I think, John, it's trust, but it's also control. I think a lot of leaders that I've dealt with just love control, and they like everything controlled under their own sort of auspices, and just the notion of giving it to someone else to do is almost alien to them. But as you said, your responsibilities grow to a point where you can't do everything yourself anymore. But John, why don't you give an example, something where you've seen delegation, a good piece of delegation in your life as a headmaster?
Yeah. Well, how about a cautionary tale? I have a separate podcast which I did a few years ago, and it's about leadership stuff, and it was three bite size, 3 minutes of wisdom. I did about 150 of them on Bite Size Boss. But one of the ones I talked about was, have you stopped doing your old job yet? Because it's very tempting, because you've gone through the marketing route or the finance route or the manufacturing route or whatever route you've taken up to the top of the organization. You know one part of the organization already very, very well. The people taking over from you in that role, or who do that role that they know you specialize in, are very nervous about the fact you've arrived and you know more about sales than you do maybe about the finance or whatever it might be, or the HR. And they're very, very nervous. And the temptation for you as a new leader, a lack of confidence maybe, is to find a safe place, bossing around people doing your old job. And it's such a mistake. And I did that in my first job when I became the leader of the whole curriculum, the teaching and learning side of the school. But I'd come up through being head of modern languages. And therefore, when I was reviewing all the heads of department, head of science, of physics and English, and I didn't know much about their subject, so I could ask them sort of nice, sympathetic questions. But when I got to the head of modern languages, I was too harsh. I was way too harsh. I was way too penetrating, way too critical, and I was still doing my old job. And it discouraged that person. Thankfully, they forgave me for that, and a very experienced colleague and a good colleague. But it was a mistake I made, which I regretted. And having that sort of empathy for people doing the job you were good at before you became the boss, understand that they're nervous.
And have you ever seen this? This I always thought was one of the most infuriating aspects of delegation. I wonder if this ever happened to you. So your manager or boss calls you in. They ask you to do normally it's quite a specific task in this case, and you run off and you do that specific task, and you discover that 3 other people have also been asked to do that same task. And this is the whether it's a trust thing or whether your manager is trying to validate that you all come back with the same answer, that can be the most disempowering type of delegation ever given to you. And of course, it creates a massive problem for the manager when he gets 3 different answers, right?
Actually, they're talking about delegating to a group of individuals, a team. I had this experience, and it wasn't by design. I sort of fell into it. I was leading a team, a small team, 6, 7 individuals. This was in Singapore. And they were all from different backgrounds, ethnicities, religions, backgrounds, etc. And I was thinking, how do I unify them and get them to focus and own the team, right? And I just came up with this idea. I said, look, I'd like to ask you to think about what are the big challenges facing us as a team. I want you to discuss it amongst yourselves. I want you to come up with the best recommendation, say 1, 2, 3, and why you chose the number 1. And I will invite you all for a big brunch at the American Club. This was in Singapore, at the American Club. And I'll pay for it myself, not the organization. And I also want you to think about who's going to lead the initiative to solve this challenge, right? And so basically what happened is the first time they didn't get it, second time they began to get it, the third time they basically owned the issues. They said, here's the big issue. We've looked at these 3 things that could solve it. Here's the best way. And so, this person is going to lead it. What ended up happening is the team owned the team. They had this complete ownership of it, trust amongst each other. There was no bickering. There was no grandstanding. And it became one of the highest performance teams. This was of Bank of America, one of the highest performance teams in this specific space. And it was purely over food.
So Tarek, we've had, as I say, one of your breakfasts before. You like to work over food, but I think Food's a great way to do business, I have to say. But I'm interested in this notion of the projects that Robin you referred to. In my experience, when you have a high potential, looking at someone and think they could be really good for this organization, if they're the kind of person to whom you say, I want you to do a specific project, and I'm not giving it to 3 people, I'm giving it to you on your own, and you see how they go, you delegate that to them, a controlled project, it can be a real sign that they have the potential to be great leaders. And that little piece of delegation is thrilling to them. They relish it, they do a fantastic job, it's on top of everything else that they're doing, and you learn that they can be trusted for higher responsibility.
And let me sort of build on that, because something that I used to love doing that I always thought had a disproportionate impact on people. So there's always a temptation to delegate responsibilities to people in line with their obvious capabilities, right? So if you've got a CFO, you might delegate financial issues. If you've got a COO, you might delegate operational issues. It's wonderful sometimes to pull someone into your office and delegate something to them which completely surprises them. Takes them out of their comfort zone, all on the basis that, look, actually, I don't just want you to learn more about things you already understand. I want you to learn about things perhaps you don't understand. So I'm going to send you overseas to a particular operation. I'm going to get you involved in something you haven't been involved in to date, because I have confidence in you, but I want to widen your scope. And that delights people, absolutely delights people. So I think the lesson there is don't always be tempted to delegate things that within the sphere that people always operate, widen their scope sometimes, and have confidence that they can deal with it. And that delights people, absolutely delights people.
Can I sort of build on that just a little bit, John? Because when I led the first team, when I was quite junior, led the first team, like Robin was saying earlier, you know the space, you know how to do it, you just want to push people out of the way if they don't do it, and ego takes over and all of that stuff. And then you learn you've learned the mistakes that you've made, and you begin to empower the team or whatever. But the thing that I wanted to emphasize or add to what Robin said is there's this concept of, especially in startups and scale-ups and stuff like that, and in a lot of high-growth companies, is the concept of Scrums. Under basically, you're getting cross-functional, so people with different responsibilities and roles, and you put them together and you give them the big issue that they need to tackle. You give them a short space of time. You don't tell them what to do. They then create this stuff, and they love that. It's just like Robin was saying, it empowers them. And actually, if you do this often enough, it becomes a muscle that gets built in the organization. And it's incredibly powerful because, as we said, a leader can't do everything himself or herself, and they have to be able to empower the people. So that's why you bring cross-functional teams and get them to work on these little scrums to solve problems. Right? Let them define the how to go forward.
I want to pick that up. It's a really good point, that, because there's a difference between what you do, how you run a small organization, startup. It could live, it could survive, it might not survive, and we're trying to grow this thing, or something which is established, which is scaling up, which is moving forward. There are different levels of organization and therefore different types of delegation. But that energy that you get, Tarek, who just talked about, from the scrum, from the everyone does everything, everyone mucks in, everyone learns everybody else's job, so I can cover here, I can cover there, and it can get done. How do you not lose that when you become a bit more corporate and structured?
You can do it in such a way where you tackle a particular project or issue, because there's constant change, right? Change in the market, geopolitics, clients, the organization, etc. And so you bring these people together and say, okay, guys, I'll give you 3 hours, get these people together. Here's the issue. Come up with some thoughts on how do we tackle this together. And it's not just an exercise in sort of creating PowerPoints or whatever. It becomes actually, especially if you then take what they come up with and act on it. If you don't act on it, they're going to say this is a useless exercise, it's pointless. But if you then actually change, even in small, because all organizations, no matter how large they are, they're built in small teams, right? There are small functions and small teams and small projects, and that's what you do. So, Robin, what do you think?
I was actually going to change the tack slightly, because I want to go back to something we've talked about, all of the different sessions that we've discussed about. And it came up in presentations, to what extent someone is a natural presenter. We talked about that. To what extent do you think delegation is something it comes naturally to certain people? Do you think everyone's a natural delegator? Do you think people learn to delegate? Because you must have heard in your organizations many times, oh, he's a terrible delegator, right? And there are other people who it comes very naturally to. In fact, some people delegate too much, right? What's your sense on that? Do you think it's something that comes naturally to certain people, or you think it's something you learn?
I do it naturally because I recognise that there are people who can do certain things far better than I can. And they do say, don't they, the best CEOs always employ people into their companies and organisations who are brighter and better than they are. Always look for people who will challenge you and make you think about the decisions that you're taking. So I naturally got the right people around me, and therefore naturally I felt I could trust them. I felt I could give them the task to do. I didn't have to be overly concerned when I gave that to them, because I knew there were things that I was good at, that I was uniquely positioned to do, that I needed to focus on. And there are so many people who, here it comes, the classic business phrase, working on the business or in the business. And if you don't delegate, you end up working in the business and you never get to work on the business. You never get to see it grow, think it through, step back, all those sorts of things. So I was a natural worker on the business, and I'd muck in only very selectively.
And you're touching on a really interesting topic here, because I think that whole notion that, when you're a leader, you can't, if you're a CEO of a bank, for example, Tarek, you're not going to be an expert in sales, IT, operation, procurement, CRE. So of course you have to surround yourself with people who have those skills, right?
Yes. In addition, part of it, think about it. The way I think about it is two ways. I'm also a natural delegator, but I think it goes back to two things. One is the size and the stage of evolution in the organization you're in, right? So there's this Griner growth model that says, when you're very early on in a small company, you're still building, et cetera, it's 2 or 3 founders. That's easy. There's no delegation, right? Because there aren't that many people and you're all talking to each other across the table or in the same room. But as the company grows, and let's say you're 20 years into the business and you're now 10,000 people, where the CEO feels, I'm not in touch. I was there at the beginning, but I don't know what's going on the ground. So there's this ego thing that begins to happen as well. So one of it is the maturity and the speed and the size of the organization. And the other one is self-confidence, right? So if you feel that you have to have control over everything and you have to know everything all the time, etc., but that's how your mindset is set, right? And you don't let go of stuff, then it becomes difficult to delegate for you.
So John, let me ask you both another question. Let's turn the tables here. There'll be lots of people listening to this podcast who get frustrated that they work for somebody who doesn't delegate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you've been an example in your career where you've been in that situation, you've been working for someone, you want things delegated to you, but they just don't delegate. And how have you addressed that? Have you gone on and confronted them? Have you just lived with it? Have you found other tasks that you can do to develop yourself? How have you dealt with when you've worked for a manager who does not delegate?
Tricky. I don't think I have worked for somebody who's done that. But what I did used to do is I would like to burnish my credentials with the leader, and I would say to them, what's on your desk right now that I can deal with? Now, they weren't delegating that. They weren't even instinctively thinking, gosh, I need this activity to be sorted out. I need this project to be done. So I would put myself forward and say, what can I do to help you? And that nurtures in them, I think, a certain sense of trust and a greater habit to delegate.
Yeah. I think it's the personal thing that you just mentioned, John, is what is on your desk that either you don't have time for or you think is incredibly difficult, you don't want to spend time on. I'll take it. And sometimes putting your head above the parapet, asking for things that might be difficult to do is a way for you to learn. But also, so even if you fail, the boss thought it was very difficult anyway, so it's not a big deal. Yeah. But if you succeed in it, it's like, whoa, okay, wait a minute, what's this person capable of? What else are they capable of? So I think it's also trust between the two individuals, right? Because the relationship between a boss and somebody reporting to them, direct report, it's trust. And if you're able to give them the feeling that you're there to support them and make them look good and help them grow, they will begin to give you stuff. If they feel threatened by you, it's a different issue.
And be ready to get something very, very unsexy.
Yeah.
The boss isn't going to say,
Yeah.
well, I need someone to go to the next conference in Barbados.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. But you're going to end up sorting out the health and safety policy.
Yeah.
Or a really niggly bit of compliance, which has been troubling everybody, and no one can see a way through how to implement the compliance changes that have happened. And how is this going to happen? And you be the person that can untie knots. You be the Alexander the Great figure who can cut the Gordian knot and make things work. You actually get that trust. So, Robin, I've got a question for you, sir, because you've asked lots of questions today, and I want to ask you a question, and that is. Let's flip this. When does delegation, you talked about people who don't do it at all. There are people who do it too much.
Oh, no, for sure.
And have you been a manager who literally delegates their job away and spends the afternoon on the golf course in kind of metaphorical terms?
Whether they've gone on the golf course, I don't know. But there are some people who do turn it into an art form, don't they? So no, I think we've all worked for managers in the past who probably delegate too much. And hopefully they realise at some point down the line that that's not the most effective way of doing things, because the best delegator is someone who maintains some sort of overview, checks in with people. Because this whole idea of delegation that you, and this is something I think you alluded to, Tarek, that with the example you had, where you can give someone a task and in certain cases you can let them fly and you can just let them go off and do it and you have complete trust. But there are also some situations where you see it as an L&D opportunity, don't you? You see it as part of a succession planning process where you almost commit to that person that I'm going to walk with you on this one, right? I'm going to give the responsibility, but I've got your back and I'm going to help to develop you. So that's something that we should talk about, because I think there are many different types of delegation, how you actually manage that person through the process. But no, there are some people who do make it an art form. I can't think of any particular story, John, where it's gone horribly wrong, but for sure there are some people.
I have an experience with this,
Okay.
and eventually people began to wonder what do they do all day, and then that becomes and then what they do all day is they get over preoccupied with checking on everybody because they spasm into this controlling kind of mentality, and they end up not just getting in everybody's way. It's a really delicate balance. You're right, between the right level of delegation and also the right amount of presence you have with a person. Because my other question is, when does over-delegation become neglect? I.e., you just let people so get on with it that you don't actually know what's going
I've certainly
on.
had, I'd be interested to see if you have it. I've certainly worked for somebody who doesn't provide clarity. And I remember there were three of us, we would go and sit with this guy and he would delegate us a task and we would have no idea what he was talking about. And we'd literally walk out of the room and then we'd have a meeting thereafter to try and dissect what it was he actually wanted.
What did we hear?
Interpret.
And it is
Actually,
but there is an issue there, because sometimes it's very difficult to go back to a senior person and get clarification. You know, it's very tempting when you're assigned a task. So, I understand it. I'll go and do it. And then you get out of the room and you think, actually, I don't actually understand what he wanted. And can I go back in and get that clarity? That's not always easy.
There's a technique which is, it can be done very delicately, very diplomatically, if you will, which is you're sitting in the meeting, you're getting this unclarified sort of task or delegation, if you will, or whatever, and you've listened carefully, you've been actively listening, you've taken notes, etc. But then you'd say, can I just repeat back what I heard, what I think I heard? And if you do this repeat back process, it allows you to clarify exactly. So when is this due? What is your expectation? Why are we doing this? All that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because if you delegate without clarity or without defining the roles and responsibilities, you have a complete mess. What you're going to get back is not going to be what you expected. The person's going to be disappointed. You create a problem.
Actually, Tarek, there's a famous Seinfeld. I don't know if you know Seinfeld. There's a famous Seinfeld where George, one of the characters, he accepts a project, and he doesn't actually understand what the project is. And then he used all of these techniques
Yeah.
behind the scenes to actually work out what the project is he's supposed to do, right?
And you're too frightened to challenge the boss, as you say, Robin, and say, actually, we didn't quite get this.
Well,
would
and
you
if you
just-
don't do it, you can't really do it day 2, can you? You can't really go back after 2 days
you
to say
can't.
that.
No.
So unless you do it straight away,
No.
you create a problem for yourself.
And I think that repeat back process is a good one because it only takes a few minutes towards the end of the meeting, and you're basically summarizing. Actually, I think the boss or your manager will appreciate that because he or she will come back and say, oh, this person actually was listening. This person has given me sort of attention and respect and taken notes and blah, blah, blah. And if you've heard something different, it's a great opportunity to clarify, right?
Yeah. I
So-
think the most talented people I've met in my career are telepathic. They are in an organization long enough and they've read the boss long enough and the boss has been clear enough that they don't even need to be told to do something.
Yeah.
They get on with it and the boss then says to them 6 months later, that's exactly what I wanted to happen.
Yeah.
I wish more people would show that kind of initiative.
Yeah.
And I think I think that clarity thing there, if you're a good boss, people can read your mind. I call it corporate telepathy.
Yeah.
They don't need to keep on bringing things to you because you've made your position clear, the objectives clear, the purpose clear, the practices, the values, the behaviors. They know what's expected. They don't need to keep going back to you. And more stuff gets done and gets done better. And it's almost like there's a sort of invisible delegation here. There's an implication that we just get on with it. And we know what to do. And I think those kind of organizations are very happy places because people are stimulated and they're driven and they're excited by the work they have and they have empowerment. So when it goes well, it can go very well.
And I think part of it, John, if I may add, is you managing your own career, right? So throughout my career, whatever responsibility, let's call it a box, whatever box I was given, most people would just stay in the box. Right. And what I used to do is I learned the box. I do it incredibly well. But then without asking for permission, I start doing things that are outside of the box
Yeah, I
that
agree.
support
That's a
the
good
box.
thing. That's
right?
a good thing to do.
And then so after a while, and okay, if you made a huge mistake, you can ask for forgiveness, but usually not. Usually the boss says, oh, you're doing all of this. I didn't realize. And then that puts you in a space where you get promoted, you get greater responsibility, et cetera, et cetera. So it takes two to tango, right? And you have to read the boss. You have to understand, perhaps what her or his strengths are, and you're complementing that. So some people are very strategic, they're visionary, they're great at doing that, but they're not into the micro detail. Then you need to be able to support them in doing that, whether yourself or somebody else on the team. And the reverse is also true. But it's a bit of, you have to establish the relationship, I think, of trust, so that you can say, look, don't need you to micromanage us. You need to get us investment dollars. You need to focus on the level above you for us, because as you give us air cover, we'll run the business below and we'll make sure we have checkpoints. To Robin's point, you can't just leave it all.
Checkpoints.
You have
I wanna
checkpoints.
talk- I want to talk about the checking in process. You've given a task, you've delegated it to somebody. Robin, you've done your analogy of you walk along more intensively with certain ones than with others. But the check-in process is important.
Yeah.
No, it is. And I think actually the person you've dedicated the task to actually enjoys that process. If I was assigned an important project, I used to enjoy going back to my boss and updating him on progress. And I used to enjoy doing that quite regularly, right? And back to that point where there's those little lacks of clarity in terms of what you're supposed to do, that presents you with another opportunity just to make sure you're on the right track. And they don't need to be long check-ins; they can be very short. How you doing? Just give me a 5-minute update. Everything on track. I think that's important.
Unless they're not.
Unless they're not on track, for sure. Yeah.
Then you're hiding. Then you're hiding.
Yeah, the check-in process is important because that's going to be a great feeling for somebody who's really got hold of this project and they're going to go for it. But there's also the person that's actually done nothing.
Yeah.
And or has failed in some way and is just too concerned to bring it to you or whatever it might be. The check-in process is important, and I take the ABS, the braking system of a car metaphor here, that you drive power to the wheel that's struggling, And sometimes you do have to delegate. You give people a chance to try something new. They might fall over. That's not a bad thing, because they can learn a lot from that experience. But you've got to be there to pick them up.
No, you have. And sometimes
sometimes that takes a bit
one
of
things
time.
I've done in the past when someone has come in and they've been struggling with a particular task, you can link them up with someone else, can't you? Go and have a chat with Pete. Go and have a chat with Lydia.
Yep.
She can maybe give you a bit of guidance. She's done something similar to this in the past. So it's another way of connecting with other people who can give them guidance as well.
Robin, you mentioned a great methodology that I've seen in my organizations and in other organizations, where you create sort of a buddy system. And you have somebody who's more experienced or senior mentor or guide or be a reference point for somebody that's more junior on the role. And it's a way not only to help the junior person, but actually it's a way to test the leadership capabilities of the more senior buddy. And it's even more interesting when you create a cross-functional buddy. So somebody in operations with somebody in sales. And so that they then have a much bigger perspective of the whole organization. I think that's another form of delegation, if you think about it, because you're coaching, you're mentoring, you're guiding through other people. And so they're not always just thinking, oh, whatever the boss wants, the boss gets. They're thinking, hang on, I'm looking at the whole organization. And I think that's actually a fantastic idea, Robin, to be.
And there's so many ways of motivating people through delegation, aren't there? I mean, one of the things I used to love to do is, as the COO, I would approach the head of operations, for example, and say, right, give me a couple of your really talented people. I want you to I want those two people to work with me directly as the COO on a particular project. And I want them come into my office and spend time with me, and I'm going to help guide them on that project. That can be hugely motivational for a junior member of staff. Wow, I'm working directly with the COO on a project, right? So there are so many ways of using it as a motivational tool, as well as a productivity tool as well.
On that positive note, we have had some really rich conversations today about delegation. And we hope you've enjoyed it. Dear listeners, dear viewers, we hope you've enjoyed what we've talked about. Please send us any particular questions you might have, because you may have a situation where you want to look at this principle and it might help you through a difficult or interesting time. Tarek, could you summarize for us what we've said today?
Okay. So key highlights, I think, from the conversation. There are a lot of very interesting examples and themes coming out. One of them is around trust, and building the trust not only between the leader and the individuals below her or him, but among the team, actually asking the questions, getting clarity on the definition of roles and responsibilities in terms of the delegation. We touched on the repeat back. We touched on the idea of creating scrums, short, small groups that tackle particular topics. We talked about whether it's natural for some people to be a delegator or not. Some people over-delegate, some people under-delegate. We touched on the buddy system. There were so many little different things that are hopefully useful to our listeners, and it will help them in their career.
Thank you, Tarek. Robin, next time.
Yeah, this is very exciting. We're going to have our first guest. She's a lady by the name of Haniya Sadiq, who I worked with when I was at HSBC, actually. She was the COO of HSBC Egypt, and she's gone on to do many, many wonderful things, including being on the list of 100 most influential Muslim women in Forbes magazine. And she's going to join us, and we're going to be talking about crisis management with her on one of our next podcasts. So really excited about that.
Yes, we're looking for. We've met Haniya informally so far, and she's an impressive lady with great wisdom to share, and we're looking forward to that conversation. Everyone, we are on all your major platforms. If you want to get in touch with us, there's an email address that you can use. It's linked to the description of this podcast. If you want to get in touch with us, by all means do. If you want to use us for something going forwards, we're always open to a chat about that, because we feel we have support we can give to individual organizations or individuals. That does happen to us all, actually, outside of our podcast life. Otherwise, we look forward to you tuning in next time and hearing Haniya and what she has to say. That's us signing out. have a great experience of delegation, we hope, and I hope it does well for you and your organisation.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.